In this lesson, we're going to finish up our dynamic lane markings by adding double lines to the center when needed. We only want to show these double lines when the center line is solid, not when it's a dashed line like in the two-lane setup. To make this work, we'll use a switch to change the curve profile we feed into our mesh. This switch will decide between showing one center line or two. We want to activate the double line only if it's the center line and if the number of lanes is greater than 2. First, we'll add a switch node. The default profile curve goes into the false input. Now, we need a condition to control the switch. Let's reuse the same logic we used earlier to check if the line is the center and how many lanes we have. So we duplicate the nodes we already used to check for the center line and the lane count. Now we have a problem. If we try to connect this Boolean condition to our switch node, we get an error. The sockets don't match. This is because the switch node doesn't accept attribute types like Booleans. It needs a single value, not a list. To solve this, we'll use a method we've used before. Wrap the part of the node tree in a for each element loop. This way, we can process each line one at a time, so the switch can work with individual values. Let's add a for each element node and set the type to spline. Now, move the nodes that are part of the line logic into this loop. Everything from the joined geometry up to the extrusion should be inside. The node output will disappear for now. That's normal until we connect the loop's end. We now connect the end of the for each element zone to the next part of the mesh creation process, like the extrude mesh node. Right now, nothing looks different. But now we're able to plug our attribute-driven Boolean condition into the switch, using a trick. The for each element node has input sockets at the top. When we pass an attribute like our center line check into the for each element, it gets converted into a single value inside the loop. So it changes from a diamond socket to a round one. That means we can finally plug this value into the switch without an error. The next step is to define what should be used as the double line curve when the condition is true. To do this, we're going to create a second curve profile. We'll use 2 separate curve line nodes and combine them. Each one will represent one part of the double line. Let's set the first curve to start at 0.15 and end at 0.05. That's like sliding the usual line 10 centimeters to the left. For the second curve, we do the opposite. Set it from 0.05 to 0.15, which moves it 10 centimeters to the right. Join the 2 lines together so they form a double line. Now this joined curve can go into the true input of the switch. So when the center line condition is true, it will use this new double line shape instead of the single line. Plug this into the capture attribute node so we can apply UV and materials like before. Now let's test it. When we view the output and increase the number of lanes, you'll see that the center line turns into a double yellow line. It updates automatically when we change the number of lanes. This setup is still fully dynamic. If the number of lines drops to 2, the center line goes back to a dashed single line. If it's more than 2, we get the double solid center line. And that's it. You've now added double lines to the dynamic lane marking system. This completes the full setup for all kinds of line markings. Solid lines, dashed lines, and now double lines. To wrap up, this lesson completes the entire lane marking system for our procedural roads. Everything is now controlled automatically. Based on the number of lanes and the position of each line, Blender now knows whether to show a single line, a dashed line, or a double center line. This makes editing or expanding your road network super easy. You can just change a number and everything updates, no need to rebuild anything manually. In the next chapter, we'll move on to placing extra road details. We'll start adding crosswalks, street signs, traffic lights, and more. These extra elements will help bring our city to life and add realism to the roads we've built.